come here in this morning and sit here all the way until now and to listen to the final one, the last presentation. And first I have to introduce myself a little bit. I come from Evan Senior High School, which is located in Tainan City, and this is my 5th year as a high school English teacher. During the past years, I do confront some problems in teaching. That's why I want to get recharged in the SFU program. So now I want to share with you some of my original problems in my teaching. First, compared with the ESL learning environment, students lack sufficient input of English in Taiwan. We know that in Taiwan, English is a foreign language, so students rarely get a chance to talk or to communicate in English. Moreover, they lack the sufficient or adequate input of English. As a result, students cannot see English as a functional language. And my second problem is, in our textbook, in the English education in Taiwan, we put too much emphasis on the grammar points and the vocabulary. So sometimes students will be demotivated by so many fragmental information. And my third problem, we know that in Taiwan or in the Asian countries, we live in a score-oriented society. So students rarely can find purpose in learning English, other than getting a good grade or entering into a good college. So this is my original 3 major problems. And as I grew pessimistic toward my English teaching, finally I tried to get recharged in the SFU program and be stimulated by other teachers, different schools. Now I want to introduce some background information of my students. First, the location of my school is not in the downtown. It is in a remote rural area of Tainan. So students can get less stimulus of information. As to my students, they are in their 11th grade, and their PR level ranges from 67 to 95. So my class is a very mixed level one. So maybe it's very hard to create a universal design like Helen mentioned in the morning. And my attitude is just like most of you have in your own class. Some of them are eager learners, while other people are very shy. And they show no enthusiasm for their English. And some of the students are just in the between. And in the SFU program, I have to tell you I learned in one of the courses that is building a community in the classroom. That is taught by teacher Sheila. And she informed us of a very effective concept. That is literature circle. I think some of you may get to know this in your own teaching. And in literature circle, I use some strategy. The first is think aloud strategy. In think aloud strategy, students can verbalize their inner speech. That is, they can speak their mind, and then they can internalize their dialogue with the other people. In this case, they can develop or build up their own knowledge or information. And the second strategy is cooperative learning. As you know, in a cooperative learning, students depend on other people to construct their own knowledge. And for the multiple intelligence, in the 6 rows in the literature circle, the illustrator, which means the drawer, can draw things, which is good for the visual learner. And the discussion master can help the logical learners to raise questions and organize other people's questions. So in the language circle, the first step, I choose 10 English novels out. And the 10 English novels are as follows. The Phantom of the Opera, and Charlotte's Web, and blah blah. You can see it in your own slide. I use the PowerPoint to introduce the 10 brief summaries of the 10 novels to my students. And in the second step, I let the students choose their favorite one. So I have the students to come to the front one by one and vote for their favorite novel. And the novel that gets the highest vote will be the reading text for the literature circle. And finally, the novel that has been chosen is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. In the third step, I have the students fill out a questionnaire, a pre-questionnaire. And this pre-questionnaire goes like this. There are some statements here. I ask them some effective ideas like, I like reading English novels, or I feel confident reading English novels, or other psychomotor skills like I can draw pictures related to the novel. And for the blanks from 1 to 5, as you can see in the slide, 1 refers to the most disagreed, and 5 refers to the most agreed. And then I ask students some questions like, do you like reading longer readings? And if students say yes, I will give them some feedback to encourage them. I hope by using this pre-questionnaire, students can clarify their concept for their novel reading. And the next step, this is the main part. I distribute the handouts that instruct them to take on or to play the 6 different roles. The 6 roles are discussion master, commenter, summarizer, paragraph finder, illustrator, and word watcher. And then I'll illustrate the 6 different roles for you. For the commenter, as you can see its literal meaning, the students have to make a connection between the plot and the world outside. For example, in the chapter 1 of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it mentioned a very strange guy, that is Mr. Hyde. So the student wrote, I ever saw a strange old man. He rode on an electric motorcycle and punched a dog very violently. Or in the second chapter, it mentioned one of Dr. Jekyll's friends, Utterson, who cared about him very much. So the student writes, he mentioned that Utterson was worried about Dr. Jekyll. And of course, students care about each other. So they can make the connection between the plot and the world outside, which means their own idea or their own personal experiences. And for the summarizer has to make a summary. I usually ask my students to write about from 5 to 6 sentences in a summary. They don't have to write a longer text. They just have to write down not more than 6 sentences from the assigned chapter. And for the paragraph finder has to locate some paragraphs out. The paragraphs must usually be very tantalizing, intriguing, impressive, or for any reason they want to pick them out. And in this handout, I ask students to write down its location, about its page or which paragraph is it, and they have to write down their reason for picking the paragraph. And for this part, this is the illustrator. That is the drawer. Students have to draw down anything that comes to their mind when they are reading their novel. And I want to mention this part. This student is very brilliant. actually she drew a comic strip about the second chapter of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So here I wrote, good comic strip, you made the whole plot very lively and intriguing. And now I want to share other people's drawings for this part. This is she wrote Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. At first, it looks very cute. I think it looks very cute. But I wrote here, I gradually can sense some evil and mysterious power inside of man. As we all know, actually Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde belong to one person. And one is evil, the other is kind. And then there's another role called word watcher. For this role, students have to locate some words that stand out in a text or repetitive or unfamiliar in the text, and they have to provide a definition to each of the words they choose. And for the discussion master, actually it is the main role among the 6 roles. He or she has to take charge of the whole discussion and ask questions. And in the process of their discussion, I asked the discussion master to ask some fact questions. That is, the question started with why or how, instead of asking when or who, so that it can stimulate students' thoughts more efficiently. In the next step, I asked each member in a group to switch their roles every week. So every week I asked one group member from every group to come to the front and share their roles and share their results of discussion with the rest of the class. In this case, I used some styrofoam balls to draw lots from the box and try to ask the students out. And then I want to share with you some problems in carrying out or implementing my literature circle. The first one, as most of you can confront in your own teaching. Students are unwilling to read the assigned chapter. Why are they unwilling to read? It's because they got so many tests to take and they got so many subjects to study. And my second problem is students are reluctant to discuss it in English, as Lee or Mr. Lee just said. She also has such a problem as this because students have been rarely trained in using English to express their own thoughts. Indeed, they don't even know how to express their own thoughts in Chinese, so let alone English. And my third problem, some of the plots are not that related to their personal experiences. So some of the students cannot identify with the characters. And my fourth problem is time constraint. Because before the big exam, I got 3 classes to teach, and plus a whole magazine with rich content to teach. So I rarely can set aside a complete time for my student to do the literature circle. So now I make some transformation to the literature circle. How do I solve the problem? First, I tell them the task is highly related to their own writing score, so they have to be very diligent and they have to be devoted to their learning and to the literature circle. And then second, I replace the student-centered mode. As you all know, the literature circle demands students' autonomy or their ownership in learning. But we can see students cannot respond to that very well. So I replace the student-centered mode of literature circle with the teacher-centered one. Let's seek how I changed it. The first, I developed worksheet. It is like a very traditional way to use when students are doing their novel reading. I create some 5WH questions for them to answer on the worksheet. And the students have to work as a group to compete to answer the questions. Indeed, I think in this case, I serve as the discussion master because I raise questions, I help students to organize their knowledge and clarify their concepts in the novel text. And then I want to tell you the technique. It is called carousel. Indeed, it is learned in one of the SFU teachers who is called Casey. The course is inquiry-based learning. She taught us a very effective and very efficient way to urge students to learn. That is carousel. And it is a written conversation. Now, I have a video clip here for you.
Question 6. Question 6. And let's read this question. Rewriting. Definitely, right? So have you ever met such a man? Do you ever met a woman like this?
Did you hear the question clearly? Did you ever met such a weird man like this? Or have you ever been to such a desolate place? Because in chapter 1, it describes a very desolate place. So I raise such open-ended questions for my students to answer.
Have you ever known anyone who is evil? Answer. To one of the questions. 你要写一个问题的答案就好了。我这边只是在问你的 personal experience 而已，你的个人经验。So have you ever met such an evil guy? 或是呢有去过什么荒凉的地方？Do you have any personal experience like this? Yeah. 好，所以只要回答任何一个问题就好了。那现在要做什么呢？你会看到后面有个挂号，挂号里面有一个叫 carousel 的东西，这个叫做旋转木马。那要怎么旋转呢？等一下，你只有1分钟写你自己的答案。你只有1分钟写你自己的答案，只有2行而已啦。然后1分钟之后，你传给你的，用顺时钟传。你传给你的，如果像是他的话，他就传给他，这样顺时钟传。是你的，sorry。好，这边就传给他。你只有1分钟可以写。这个是顺时的。你就一个都可以写，好，给他写，那他要写什么呢？他可以回应你的，就是 respond to what you write， 回应你的，然后再写上自己的 personal experience 也可以，但不管你要写什么，你也可以写什么聊天的东西，都可以，最关键whatever you write，可是要跟题目有关系。Ready？ 可以吗 ？Ready？ 9 years ahead， 1个人只有1分钟，所以我说pass就要pass，然后。可以了吗？好，来 go， 开始了。Just write down your answer. Just write down your answer.
So I give them 1 minute to answer the question. And after 1 minute, they have to pass their paper for the people beside them.
你要写一句话也可以，不要给自己太大压力。Don't give yourself too much pressure. 不要给自己太大压力，写自己的哈。No， 如果需要一些英文，yeah。那一个是什么？
And in the process, they ask me some questions. They give me the Chinese, and I give them the English equivalent to them. And the process continues with the rest of the students after all the students have responded to other people's ideas. And this is called the written conversation. In this case, I think it serves the same purpose as the connector, because the connector has to find the connection between the plot and the real-life experiences. In this case, I help the students to relate the plot to their own personal experiences. Moreover, they can share their ideas with other group members. And for this is reader theater. I try to modify some of the novel text and created some lines by myself. As you just know, in some of my partner presentations, we have already known the idea, vocal coloring, which is to add emotion to your own voices. So here I have 6 lines, and the emotions is written in the front, like anxious, wistfully, suspicious, bellowing, or rapid, or cheering, and quickly. And here I have another video clip for you. And in the video clip, I demonstrate how to do the vocal coloring first, and then ask some of the students to come to the front and do the vocal coloring on their own.
好，来看一下中间的叙述 vocal coloring。vocal is related to your voice 的声音。那你对你的声音上色是什么意思呢？好 ，these colors to these words， 你已经知道渴求的意思。You are very scared， 好，这是一个记忆里的。好，这个不是啊，明白。
And then I stand in the video and try to demonstrate the vocal coloring. Each group has to send out a representative and to do the vocal coloring.
And write it from your
Wrong with the video clip. Their voice and their action cannot correspond. So this is the vocal coloring. After doing this, students find they are refreshed after shouting out or cheering out so loudly. And then this is the Pictionary. I wrote down the rule of the Pictionary. As you can see in the slide, please draw out the word you see in the front. The group who shouts out the answer first will get 1 point. So I try to select 7 words, and I write the 7 words on a piece of paper. each on a piece of paper, and for each time, every group has to stand out the person and see the words. And then they have to go back to their own group silently. And when I ask them to hold their pen and then draw, they can start to draw. And the first, the thing they have drawn out is for the rest of the group members to get its meaning. And the first group that shouts out the answer correctly will get 1 point. This is a very interesting game, and in this way the students can get to know some of the words in the novel better. So I think in this case, Pictionary also echoes the function of illustrator, as students can write and can draw, and also the function of word watcher, as students can get to know some of the unfamiliar or repetitive words better. And then here is my conclusion. Originally, I used the traditional way of literature circle, but finally, I think to some extent, it cannot work out. So I tailor to the students' needs, and successfully, I think I successfully give my students more chances to learn English. And also, the students can see learning English from a different angle. They can see English in a different perspective. And then, judging from the post-questionnaire, actually I distribute them a second questionnaire that to let them fill out. They find a greater interest in English and less afraid of doing any forms of output. The post-questionnaire is like this. The statement is just like the one I show you in the pre-questionnaire, and then I ask them some different questions. In the first question, I ask, in the 6 rows of literature circle, which row do they enjoy most? And some of them like to be the connector, some of them like to be the illustrator. I cannot say that for sure. And in the second question, I ask the student which kind of activity they enjoy the most. And for the third question, I ask them, so far, you have enjoyed so many interesting games. So, do you like to learn English more? And why or why not? Most of them say they get a sense of achievement and they enjoy learning English in such a fun way. This is another example for my post-questionnaire. And now I got some extra information for you. The first one is grocery cart game. As you can see in my description here, the students have to form 2 to 3 lines, and those who are placed first, which means the first students in the same row have to compete to answer the question have to compete to provide an answer to the question the teacher provides. Once the correct answer is shouted out loudly, the first students in the same row have to go to the back of each line, just like the grocery cart in the supermarket. This grocery cart game is very interesting and students enjoy it a lot. And this is called a thing point. Actually, it is a very short poem. Some of our SFU partners have already mentioned how to create a poem like the ABC poem or I am from poem. This is another way of creating a 5-line poem. In the first line, you just have to only write down the noun, and the second line, 2 adjectives, and third line, 3 verbs, and fourth line, 4 or 5 word phrases. And the last line is synonym for the first noun. Because of time constraints, I will show you the examples here. And for the very last part, I'll tell you a very effective way to group the students. It is called Old Clock Buddies. The handout is just like this. In this handout, the students have to find 12 different clock partners. And in the process, they have to practice the language structure like, do you want to be my 1 o'clock partner? Or, sorry, I have have already have a 1 o'clock partner. Why not be my 2 o'clock partner? And something like that. And after they have found their 12 o'clock partners, we can group the students. Students can work in pairs very effectively, but we want to ask them to do some pair discussion later in our own teaching. And this is the end of my speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So are there questions for speaker?
Thank you very much for your presentation. I use literature circles in my classroom all the time as well, and many of the things that you mentioned that are struggles I've also experienced, so I appreciate your solutions and suggestions. I really like the activities you use, like Pictionary and Reader Theater, to model or echo the jobs that the students would do, or the roles the students would do in their literature circles. And what I'm wondering is, now that your students have had that experience of doing the echoing activities or role modeling with you, would you go back and try student-centered literature circles? Do you feel that their skills would be strong enough now to try the original format that you would use?
I think I'll still give it a try. As I mentioned, because of the time constraint, I cannot have sufficient time to train my students to do some critical thinking first. So if I got enough time, I can train them to think in English or express in English, and then guide them into the more difficult tasks in the literature circle.
Do they play the roles only in class or after class?
I ask them to play the role after class, but they seldom do this because they have got a lot of reasons like have to take or subject to study.
And I have a quick question. You said page 2 to 5, you said they switch roles every week, right? But what if they are expert in certain area? Like, can they do the illustrators if they don't know how to draw?
Yes, so some of them just draw something childish, but I didn't show it to you, but I still encourage them to do their own drawing. I think it's not a big deal, anyway.
Any other questions?
Thank you. I was wondering, you used the novel Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Is that the full, English novel? Because I think that's very high-level English reading. So I was wondering, what type of version of the book were you using?
I used the simplified version. Actually, it is very thin novel. Students can know the plot very easily. It's not that advanced.
The reason I was asking the question is because you mentioned that time constraint was an issue. And I wonder if you consider using literature circles, but maybe doing video circles. So having them watch a clip on YouTube, and then have them do the different roles using the movie. I wonder if you think if your students would be willing to participate in the discussion if they had more choice around the text that they were reading.
Excuse me, I cannot.
Do you think the students would participate more in the discussion if they were able to choose the text, or instead of a novel, maybe a movie or a magazine? If they got to choose what they were talking about, do you think that they would do more of a discussion?
That's for sure. If students choose different resources, each group can choose their different novels or choose different resources from the internet, the students will get motivated because it is their own selection, their own choice. I'll do that later. Thanks for your suggestion. Yeah.
I was really wondering if it was the discussion I was wondering if you felt that they were really too shy to discuss, or if it was the text. But you answered my question very well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Well, by now you probably are thinking, oh my God, if I go abroad, I have to do so much when I come back. What a hard work. Too scary to apply to our program, right, at this point. Well, we have a surprise for you. In addition to the hard work, we do have fun also, and social network has been built. So our participant teachers became good friends when they came back. And they actually made a video of what they have learned and all the special moments they've shared together. And we would like to take a moment to share this video with you so that you don't think it's all work and no play. So there is definitely some play, right? You want to?
These are the classes.
These are the classes and the professors we got there in Canada. And we take pictures, and then at the closing ceremony, we made a video clip to dedicate to all the teachers there and all our fellow teachers as a memory, as a souvenir. So you can see what we did in SFU.
I can still recall our last summer, I still see it all. Walks along the Seine, laughing in the rain. Our last summer, memories that remain. We made our way along the river and we sat down in the grass by the Eiffel Tower. The
retired biology teacher, and she taught us how to raise salmon. They're doing a project about raising salmon there. So we have a barbecue in a salmon place, and then she introduced a lot of plants during the field trip.
So you see, it's not all work. There are some fun parts. So we do encourage that you keep up with our news. We have started our application deadline already for next year, but hopefully there will be other opportunities if you haven't sent in your application. Now, if you have any questions before I introduce our next speakers for the teachers? No? Okay, so I will floor to. Okay. So take a moment. I guess well, our next speaker is a teacher from our Education Resource Center, and part of our program goal is to get a group of teachers together to study abroad and continue with the learning of what they have learned abroad when they're back in Taiwan. And so we hope that as teachers return, they will continue to grow professionally with other teachers. And with the help of Education Resource Center, we hope that this can be continued in a much stronger community. And so we would like to take this opportunity to invite a teacher who has worked with this education center for a while to introduce some of the things that they're doing for teacher development. And we hope that this teacher development is an ongoing process, and that you will all be willing to participate in it as you develop your career. So I guess we'll give the floor to you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, professors. You must be wondering what happened. I'm sorry, this is Laura from the Education Resource Center. You must be wondering. I can play that later. Thank you. I have to start from the very beginning. You must be wondering why I'm here. To be honest with you, sometimes I'm wondering why I'm here. I was told several weeks ago by the Ministry of Education to be here to tell those teachers who might be interested in next year, this year's teacher education program abroad, what the Ministry of Education is going to do. Actually, the Ministry of Education has sponsored this project for almost 10 years, but it suddenly stopped the project in 2006 because one of the important officials of the Ministry of Education thought it was not profitable at all. It thought that when the teachers come back, from the foreign country, they did not make visible contributions to the English teaching here in Taiwan.
and he felt this was not profitable at all because the MOE had to spend $4 to $5 million on this project. Later, something happened in 2011. Our president Ma was a little bit upset about the test results of TOEIC. Did you remember the headline at that time? He was a little bit upset. Actually, he was crazy. Angry about that. So he asked the Minister of Education to try every possible means to enhance our students' English proficiency. And then, we were consulted at different meetings. Actually, a number of meetings were held at that time, and we were consulted. And at that time we proposed to the MOE that we wanted this project back because we thought it was really profitable. And the MOE did reconsider, having this project back, but with one condition: all the teachers taking part in this teacher education program abroad need to implement what they have learned in their own classrooms. And after half a year of implementing this, what they have learned abroad, they need to hold workshops, to share their experiences or the results or their lesson plans, whatever they have done in their classrooms with all the teachers from all over Taiwan. And that's why they need to have, to do so many things, and that's why you and I am here. So now this year, here comes the most tragic part to me, is the tragedy. This year, the MOE officials are considering, so since we have the English Education Resource Center, why don't we make good use of it? So they are considering making good use of the English Education Resource Center to hold the follow-up workshops for this project. So that means when all the teachers finish their training program abroad, when they come back, the English Resource Center will email them and to ask them to attend follow-up, 3 follow-up workshops, and to work with our seed teachers, the so-called 种子教师, recruited from all over Taiwan, to work out their individual lesson plans. And then after 3 stages of training, they will be assigned to different cities or counties to share what they have learned or what they have done in their upper classrooms and with all the teachers from all over Taiwan. And now I'm going to show how we do the seed teacher training, and this is only the first stage of the training for this year. And next year, probably some of you here will be part of it. Join us. Play the bicycle. project as profitable as it can be. Or any kind of questions concerning the follow-up, workshops or sharing activities? No? Okay, so join us. Good luck. Thank you.
I hope you're not scared by hearing more workshops, more work. We really hope that it won't become a chore for you, but you find this a place to develop professionally, to have people like you working together to build a stronger teaching community. It is really important to realize that you're not working alone. There are a lot of teachers in this community who are more than happy to work with you. So we hope that you keep that in mind as we develop our program, and really do feel free to contact us if you have any questions, and we'll be more than happy to answer them and provide suggestions if you have any also. I'm sure we don't run a perfect program. There are things that we can always improve on, so we do welcome comments, suggestions in any form, and we really hope that you, after staying here for such a long time, you have been able to take away at least 1 or 2 things away with you and try it on your Monday's classroom. Don't feel like you have to try everything at once, but I think taking one little step is a good beginning. And I hope you have a great weekend, or what's left of your weekend, and we look forward to seeing a lot of you in the very near future. Thank you.